Jack's eyes flickered open, his head pounding as if 1,000 hammers were striking him all at once. The soft light around him made his eyes squint, and his body felt strange, heavy, as though he had been asleep for far too long. He tried to move, but a wave of dizziness washed over him, forcing him to lie still. The air around him smelled unfamiliar, clean and slightly sweet, like something he had never encountered before. Where am I, he thought, his mind trying to piece together the events that led him here. But the more he thought, the fuzzier everything became. The last thing he remembered was the crash, the terrifying sound of metal scraping against rock, the feeling of falling, and then nothing. As Jack tried to focus, he became aware of a soft rustling sound near him. He turned his head, his neck stiff, and saw a figure standing at his side. It was an alien, or at least that's what he thought at first glance. The creature was humanoid, with smooth, pale skin that shimmered faintly in the light. Its face was graceful, with delicate features and large, dark eyes that seemed to hold an endless depth of knowledge. The being was dressed in a simple, soft-looking uniform that reminded Jack of a medical gown. The alien smiled at him, gentle, but there was something strangely comforting in it. "You're awake," she said, her voice melodic and calming. "How do you feel?" Jack blinked several times, struggling to find his words. "Where am I?" he finally managed to ask, his voice raspy from disuse. "You are in a medical recovery chamber," the alien replied. "You were found unconscious after your ship crashed. Don't worry, you're safe now." "Ship crash," Jack murmured, the words triggering a cascade of fragmented memories. Metal screeching, the roar of fire, and then the blackness that had followed. But he couldn't remember how he had survived. The memories were like pieces of a puzzle, scattered and incomplete. Where am I really?" Jack asked again, his voice growing a bit more frantic. "Who are you?" "My name is Nira," the alien said, her smile never faltering. "I'm part of the medical team that was sent to rescue you. You're on my home planet. We found your ship in a crash site several cycles ago." Jack's mind raced. Home planet? He had so many questions. But how did I survive? The crash? "Your injuries were minimal," Nira replied. "You've been unconscious for a while, but your body is strong. Very strong, in fact." Jack's confusion deepened. "I don't remember anything. I don't even know how I got here." Nira's dark eyes softened. "It's all right. You're still recovering. The process takes time. Don't worry, we'll explain everything in due time. Right now you need rest." Jack tried to sit up, but was immediately stopped by a gentle hand on his shoulder. He looked up at Nira, who was holding him steady with an almost unexplainable strength. "Take it easy," she said softly. "You're not fully healed yet." He nodded, lying back down. The reality of the situation began to sink in. He was stranded on an alien world with no memory of how he had gotten here. How was he going to get home? Or was this now his home? "Are you human?" Nira asked after a moment, her voice curious. Jack blinked in surprise. Yeah, I am. What about you?" "I'm Elari," Nira answered. "We are a peaceful species. We travel across the stars, assisting those in need." "Peaceful?" Jack repeated, still trying to process everything. "How long have I been here?" Nira gave a soft laugh, as if Jack had asked an obvious question. "Only a few of your days. You've just been resting and recovering." Days, Jack thought. His mind felt foggy. It seemed like much more time had passed, but he was too exhausted to question further. I don't understand," he muttered. "Your memories may be blurry, but that's normal after a traumatic event like a crash. It will take time to fully heal. We can help with that." Jack stared at her for a long time, wondering just how much she was hiding. She wasn't telling him everything. He could sense that much. But before he could ask more questions, Nira gently placed a hand on his forehead. "Try to rest. Everything will make more sense when you wake up again." Jack wasn't sure if he was tired from the crash or from the confusing conversation, but his eyelids grew heavier by the second. "Rest," he whispered, closing his eyes. Jack awoke again, but this time the pain in his head was duller. The strange room around him was now more familiar. He could see the walls clearly now. They were smooth, almost metallic, with soft, glowing lines running through them. It was like nothing he had ever seen before. Nira was there, standing beside his bed, a small tablet in her hands. "Good, you're awake," she said, her smile still warm and comforting. "How are you feeling?" "Better, I think," Jack replied, rubbing his temples. "A little less dizzy, but still confused." "That's to be expected," she said. "Your body is adjusting, don't worry. The rest will come in time." Jack couldn't help but stare at her, trying to make sense of her calmness. It was as though she knew everything about him, but Jack had no clue who she really was or what was going on. "You keep saying that. In time. But what does that mean? Am I stuck here?" Nira paused, her expression softening. "You're not stuck, Jack. You're safe. This place is just a temporary home until we can help you get back on your feet." "Back on my feet?" Jack repeated. "Where am I going after that?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned to look at the window as if lost in thought. After a moment, she spoke. "I can't answer that yet. There's more to your situation than you realize." Jack's frustration bubbled up. "What do you mean? Why won't you tell me anything?" "Because you're not ready to understand. Yet," Nira said, her voice gentle but firm. "We've been monitoring you, studying humans for a long time. There are things about you, things that you don't even know, that could change everything. But for now, you need rest and healing. Before we can explain it all." Jack's mind raced with even more questions, but something in Nira's tone told him that pressing her wouldn't get him any answers. Still, something about the way she said it made him uneasy. There was more to this than he could imagine. And somehow he had a feeling that his being here was no accident. As if sensing his growing unease, Nira placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch cool and comforting. "For now, all you need to focus on is recovering. The rest will come." Jack hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, I'll try to rest." Nira gave him another smile and nodded before turning to leave the room. "You'll be fine, Jack. We'll make sure of it." As she walked away, Jack lay back against the bed, staring at the ceiling. 1,000 questions swirled in his mind. But one thing was clear. His life would never be the same again. The soft hum of the room seemed to surround Jack as he woke up once more. The haze of confusion had cleared a little, but his mind still felt foggy. It had been days, or maybe it was just a few hours, since he had arrived in this strange place. His body was no longer in pain, but his thoughts were a mess. The crash, the fire, the smoke, and then nothing. He couldn't remember how he had survived, nor could he fully understand where he was. He sat up slowly this time, the strange weightlessness in his body fading as his strength returned. The soft glow of the room still dazzled his eyes, but he could feel himself adjusting. The bed he lay on was soft and comfortable, too much so for a crash site. Jack stared at the walls for a while, still trying to piece everything together. Where had he been before? What was happening? The door to the room opened with a soft hiss and Nira entered, her silhouette framed by the dim light from the hallway. She moved silently, her footsteps almost imperceptible on the smooth surface of the floor. Jack watched her, noticing again how serene she seemed. Nira had a calmness about her, a peaceful aura that Jack couldn't quite explain. "How are you feeling today?" she asked, her voice gentle as ever, as she approached the bedside. "Better," Jack answered, though his voice still carried a hint of uncertainty. "But I still don't get it. What happened? How did I end up here?" Nira smiled softly and took a seat next to him. "You were lucky. Your ship crashed on our planet, and we were able to find you in time." She paused, her expression turning thoughtful. "But there is more to it than that." Jack frowned, trying to make sense of her words. More to it? What do you mean? I've been thinking about your situation, and there's something unusual about your arrival, Nira continued, her tone cautious. Most humans don't make it this far, and certainly not with your injuries so minimal. Most humans? Jack echoed. What do you mean by that? Nira hesitated for a moment, as if weighing whether to share this information. After a few seconds, she nodded as though deciding it was time. You see, Jack, humans are rare visitors to our world. We've encountered a few over the years, but not many, and when we do, it's usually a very specific reason why they're here. Jack's curiosity piqued. A specific reason? But I wasn't trying to come here. I was just flying a ship. You don't remember, do you? Nira interrupted, her voice still soft but full of understanding. The crash, and it wasn't an accident. Jack's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? Are you saying it was planned? Someone caused the crash? Nira's gaze softened. Not exactly. But there is something important about you, Jack. Something we didn't know until you arrived. You were sent here for a reason. Jack was silent for a moment, trying to process her words. He had so many questions, but he wasn't sure where to start. I still don't understand. Why me? Why am I here? And who exactly are you? What is this place? Nira sighed, her eyes looking distant for a brief. Jack's mind was still racing. Every word Nira had spoken echoed in his head, and he couldn't stop thinking about what she had said. There was a war coming, and he was somehow involved. But how? He was just a regular human, someone who liked flying ships, not fighting battles. The more he thought about it, the more confused he became. Over the next few days, Nira continued to care for him, guiding him through the process of recovery. Jack was still adjusting to his new surroundings, but the strange alien facility he found himself in had begun to feel a little less foreign. The people who worked here were kind, but there was a distance to them. They didn't seem entirely human, and their calmness only added to Jack's unease. But it was Nira who stayed by his side, offering comfort in small ways. Whether it was bringing him food, adjusting the medical equipment, or just sitting with him when the silence felt too heavy, she was always there. Jack found himself looking forward to their conversations, though he was careful not to push too hard with his questions. He could tell she was holding something back, but part of him felt like he needed to earn her trust before he could truly learn the full truth. One afternoon, after Jack had finished a light meal, Nira entered his room, her expression soft but focused. How are you feeling today? She asked, sitting down next to him. Better, Jack replied, trying to sound more confident than he actually felt. Still a little disoriented, but I think I'm getting the hang of things here. I'm glad to hear that, Nira said. Her eyes lingered on him for a moment before she added, There's something I want to show you today. Something that will help you understand more about what's happening. Jack raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I think you're ready to see it, she replied, standing up. Come with me. Curiosity tugged at him as he followed her down a series of hallways, each one lit by the same soft blue glow that seemed to pulse from the walls. Jack couldn't help but wonder how much he still didn't know about this place. The architecture was unlike anything he had ever seen, smooth, sleek, and almost alive in a way. It was as though the walls themselves were breathing, alive with energy. Nira led him into a large room, its size making him feel small in comparison. In the center of the room stood a large structure, its surface covered in glowing lines and intricate patterns. It looked like a cross between a machine and a piece of artwork. Jack's heart skipped a beat as he approached it, drawn to its mysterious beauty. What is this? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. This is a device that will help you understand your potential, Nira said, her voice calm. It was built long ago, and it's been waiting for someone like you to come along. Jack stepped closer to the device, feeling a strange pull toward it. He wasn't sure what it was, but something deep inside him told him it was important. His heart beat faster as he reached out and placed his hand on the cool surface. Immediately, the device hummed to life. The glowing lines began to pulse brighter, and the air around them seemed to shift. Jack gasped, stepping back, his heart pounding in his chest. Don't be afraid, Nira said softly, stepping closer to him. This is part of the process. The device will connect to your mind and help you unlock the potential that's inside you. What's happening? Jack asked, his voice shaky. The device is reading your brainwaves, Jack, Nira explained. It's trying to connect with the energy in your mind, the same energy that allows you to interact with machines. It's something we've never seen before in a human, but we've been waiting for someone like you. Jack's mind raced as the device seemed to come alive with energy. The patterns on its surface shifted and changed, almost as though it were speaking to him in a language he couldn't understand. He felt a strange warmth spreading through his chest, and for a brief moment, it felt like his mind was opening up, as if everything around him was becoming clearer. But then, as quickly as it had started, the light dimmed and the device powered down. Jack blinked, his heart still pounding in his chest. "What was that?" he asked, his voice trembling. "That was just the beginning," Nira said, her expression serious but encouraging. "You felt it, didn't you? The connection between your mind and the technology. That's what makes you different from other humans. The energy you have inside you, it's like a key that can unlock the power of machines." Jack shook his head in disbelief. "I don't know what to think. It felt real, but it's too much to process all at once." "You don't have to understand it all right now," Nira reassured him. "The important thing is that you've made the first step. Your mind is starting to connect with the technology around you, and when you're ready, we'll help you harness that power." Jack took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing thoughts. "But why me? Why do I have this ability? What's so special about me?" Nira studied him for a moment, her gaze soft but intense. "You were chosen, Jack. You were brought here for a reason. We knew you had the potential, and we've been waiting for you. You may not fully understand yet, but your connection with technology is a gift that could change everything." Jack ran a hand through his hair, still trying to wrap his mind around it all. He had always considered himself ordinary, just a man, flying ships and living his life. But now, it felt like the entire universe was opening up to him in ways he couldn't control. "I don't know if I'm ready for all of this," he said quietly, feeling the weight of it all pressing down on him. "You don't have to be ready yet," Nira said, her voice gentle. "This isn't something that can be forced. We'll take it one step at a time, and when you're ready, you'll understand how to use your abilities. But for now, I want you to trust me. Trust that we're doing this for your safety, and for the safety of everyone." Jack looked at her, his heart heavy with uncertainty but also a strange sense of purpose. He had no idea what was happening to him or why he was chosen, but something deep inside told him that Nira was right. He was a part of something much bigger than himself now. "Okay," he said, his voice firm. "I'll try to trust you, but I need to know more. I need to understand everything." Nira smiled, her eyes lighting up with something that almost looked like relief. "You will, Jack, and together we'll make sure you're ready for whatever comes next." As they left the room and returned to his quarters, Jack's mind was still buzzing with everything he had learned. The connection to the device had felt so real, so powerful. But he knew there was still so much he didn't understand. One thing was clear, though. His life had been changed forever, and whether he was ready or not, he was now a part of something much bigger. The war Nira had mentioned, the mysterious powers within him and the strange alien world he now found himself in, all of it was connected. And somehow he knew he had a role to play in it. But what role that would be, Jack had no idea. The days seemed to blur together as Jack continued his recovery in the alien facility. He spent most of his time talking to Nira, learning more about the Elari and their world. Every conversation seemed to open up new questions, but Nira was always careful with her answers. There was so much Jack didn't know, so much she hadn't shared, and he couldn't shake the feeling that she was holding something back. It had been a week since his first connection with the strange device in the lab. His body was feeling better, stronger, but his mind was still full of questions. What was this power he seemed to possess? Why was he here? And why had the Elari been waiting for someone like him? Nira's words echoed in his mind. "You were chosen. But for what? He wasn't some hero or warrior, just a pilot who had gotten caught up in something far bigger than he ever could have imagined. Jack had spent days thinking about it. He knew Nira was being careful, but he also knew she wasn't telling him everything. She had hinted at something much larger, something dangerous. There was a war coming, and Jack had a role in it. He had to know more. One evening, as the lights of the facility dimmed and a cool breeze swept through the hallway, Jack decided he couldn't wait any longer. He needed answers, and Nira was the only one who could give them to him. After waiting until he knew she'd be off her shift, Jack slipped out of his room and quietly made his way to the command center. It was late, and the halls were nearly empty. The hum of the building was the only sound, but Jack's footsteps were muffled as he moved. The command center was where Nira worked, and it was there that he might be able to find the answers he sought. He reached the door and paused, listening for any sound from inside. He could hear voices, but they were too soft to make out the words. With a deep breath, Jack pressed his hand to the door panel. It slid open without a sound. Inside, several Aelari were gathered around a central table, discussing something in low voices. Jack didn't recognize any of them, but he did recognize the serious tone of the conversation. He slowly stepped inside, trying not to draw attention to himself. "The human must never learn the full truth," one of the Aelari said, his voice low but sharp. "We can't keep it from him forever," another responded, his voice filled with concern. "He's already started to connect with the technology. If we don't explain it to him soon, he might start to understand on his own." Jack's heart skipped a beat. The conversation seemed to be about him. He moved closer to the table, trying to stay out of sight. His pulse raced as the Aelari continued speaking. "You don't understand," the first one said. "The device was never meant." Jack had never felt so lost in his life. The truth, the power, the war, it was all too much. He was just a pilot, someone who loved flying ships and living a simple life. But now it felt like his world had been turned upside down, and nothing made sense anymore. Nira's words echoed in his mind. "You were chosen." Chosen for what? To unlock the power of an ancient device that could change everything? To help fight in a war he knew nothing about? And what about the Aelari? Had they been using him all along? Jack leaned against the cold wall of his room, trying to process everything that had happened. His body was recovering, but his mind felt as though it was spiraling out of control. He couldn't just go along with their plan. He didn't even know what the plan was. The war was coming, Nira had said, and he was supposed to help the Aelari fight it. But Jack wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a hero. He was just someone trying to survive. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock at the door. Jack looked up, his heart skipping a beat. He wasn't expecting anyone. He had been avoiding Nira since their last conversation. He wasn't sure he could handle any more truths, not just yet. "Jack?" Nira's voice came from the other side of the door. "Can we talk?" Jack hesitated. He didn't know if he was ready to face her. But then, he realized there was no escaping it. He had to know more. He needed answers. He opened the door slowly, his eyes meeting Nira's. She stood there, looking as calm as always, but Jack could see the worry in her eyes. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. Jack stepped aside, allowing her to enter. She moved with her usual grace, but this time there was a seriousness to her movements. She sat down at the small table in the corner of the room, folding her hands in front of her. "I know you're confused," Nira said, her voice soft. "I know you're angry, and I understand why. You never asked for any of this." Jack sat down across from her, his gaze hard. "I didn't," he said, his voice low. "But you still brought me here. You told me I had a role to play. And I don't know what that role is. What's really going on, Nira? Why didn't you tell me everything from the beginning?" Nira sighed, her eyes filled with sorrow. "I wanted to. I really did. But there were things I couldn't explain to you until I knew you were ready. Until I knew you could handle the truth." "And now?" Jack asked, his arms crossed. "Am I ready now? Is that it?" Nira looked down as if struggling with her thoughts. Jack, there are things about the Alari that even I don't fully understand. Things that go back centuries. The device you connected with, it wasn't just a piece of technology. It was part of a larger plan. A plan that started long before you or I were born. Jack's heart raced. What do you mean? What's this plan? It's a weapon, Nira said softly, her voice filled with regret. A weapon that could change the course of this war. A weapon that the Ilari have been searching for centuries. The device was created by an ancient race, one that disappeared long before we found it. But the power it holds, it's unlike anything we've ever encountered. Jack's brow furrowed. A weapon? But you said it could change everything. That it could help you win the war. Nira nodded slowly. It can. But there's more to it than just that. The weapon itself is not what we need. It's the knowledge, the power it holds inside, that's what we need to win. Jack stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. You've been using me. All this time I've just been a tool for your war. No, Nira said quickly, standing up to face him. That's not true. I never wanted to use you, Jack. Then what is this? Jack shouted, his frustration boiling over. Why did you bring me here? Why did you let me connect with that device if it wasn't to use me for this war? I didn't bring you here to use you, Nira said, her voice soft but urgent. I brought you here because I believe you're the key to stopping this war from destroying everything. You're not just a tool, Jack. You're part of something bigger, something that could save us all. Jack's anger faltered for a moment. How? How could I possibly be part of something that important? Nira's gaze softened. Because your mind is different. The Alari didn't know what they were looking for when they found the device. They didn't know that it needed a human mind to unlock its true power. But you, Jack, you have the ability to understand it, to connect with it. You're not just a survivor. You're the key to everything. Jack took a step back, trying to process her words. The key to everything? He didn't feel like the key to anything. He was just a man who had found himself in the middle of a war he didn't understand. Then what happens now? Jack asked quietly. What do you need me to do? Nira took a deep breath. The Alari are preparing for battle. The war is inevitable. But we don't want to fight this war, Jack. We want to stop it before it starts. That's why you're here. You have the power to help us. But you have to be willing to help us. Jack's mind was still reeling. He didn't know if he could trust her or the Alari. They had kept so much from him. But something in Nira's eyes made him want to believe her. She wasn't just a soldier. She was someone who cared about him, who had tried to protect him. Tell me what I need to do, Jack said, his voice steady now, though his heart was still pounding. Nira looked at him, her eyes filled with relief. We need you to connect with the device again. We need you to understand its power, but this time we need you to unlock its true potential. We can't do it without you, Jack. Jack hesitated. It felt like everything was on the line. One wrong move and everything could fall apart. But he knew he had no choice. He was already in too deep. Okay, Jack said, his voice resolute. I'll do it. But you have to promise me something. What is it? Nira asked, her voice soft. Promise me you'll be honest with me from now on, Jack said, his eyes locking onto hers. I can't keep doing this, not knowing what's really going on. Nira nodded, her expression sincere. I promise, Jack. From now on, you'll know everything. No more secrets. Jack nodded in return, though his mind was still swirling with questions. He had no idea what he was about to do, but he knew it was the only way forward. The war was coming, and whether he was ready or not, he had a part to play in it. Jack stood at the threshold of the chamber, his heart racing. The room before him looked much the same as it had the last time he had connected with the device, but everything felt different now. The air was heavy with anticipation, and his mind was a whirlwind of doubt and fear. Nira stood beside him, her expression calm, but there was an edge of tension in her posture. The time had come to make a choice. The Ailari had given him no time to hesitate. The war Nira had said was coming, and they needed him to unlock the true power of the device, to connect once more and help them end it before it started. But Jack had his doubts. Could he really trust them? Could he trust Nira? After everything he had learned, everything he had heard, how could he know for sure that they were telling the truth? How could he know if they weren't using him as just another tool in their fight? "Are you ready?" Nira asked softly, her voice filled with quiet urgency. Jack took a deep breath and looked at her. He had spent days thinking about everything she had said, the power he held, the role he had to play in this war. A part of him still wanted to say no, to walk away, to refuse to be a part of something so dangerous. But the other part of him, the part that had started to trust Nira, knew that there was no turning back now. He was in this, and maybe, just maybe, this was the only way to stop the destruction that seemed inevitable. "I don't know if I'm ready," Jack admitted, his voice barely a whisper. Nira nodded, understanding in her gaze. "No one is ever ready for something like this. But we don't have a choice anymore. If we don't act, the war will destroy everything. This device, Jack, it's our only hope." Jack nodded slowly, his mind still processing everything. He looked at the glowing lines of the device before him, feeling the strange pull that had been there the last time he had touched it. It was as if the machine was calling to him, urging him to unlock its secrets. But it wasn't just the device he had to trust. It was the people who had brought him here, the Ailari, the ones who had been waiting for someone like him. "I'm not a soldier, Nira," Jack said, shaking his head. "I don't know how to fight a war. I'm just a guy who ended up here by accident." "You don't have to be a soldier," Nira replied, her voice soft but firm. "You have the power to change everything. You have the power to stop this war before it begins. And that's something no one else can do." Jack stared at the device, his hand hovering over it. He could feel the heat from it, the hum of energy building in the air. His heart pounded in his chest, and for a moment he thought about turning away, about running. But he couldn't. He couldn't ignore the truth any longer. This was his destiny now, whether he wanted it or not. "I don't understand it," Jack said quietly, his voice filled with doubt. "I don't understand how I'm supposed to do this, how I'm supposed to control this power." "You won't have to do it alone," Nira said, stepping closer to him. "We'll guide you. We'll help you unlock the power inside. You just have to trust yourself." Jack's mind was still swirling, but he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't turn back now. He had to make a choice, and this was the only way forward. With a deep breath, Jack reached out and placed his hand on the device. The moment his fingers touched the smooth surface, the energy surged through him again. Stronger this time, the light from the device,